First off, tell me about settling in. Has it been any surprises at all?
Well, nice surprises.
Yeah.
Other than the weather. Nice surprises. Very welcoming community, extremely inviting. Food's great, people are great, employees have been very, very gracious. So I don't have any complaints.
How's the company doing? Is it like when you walked in and finally got a good look at it for yourself from top to bottom? I mean, you probably have. Has it been surprising, or are you concerned in some ways about it?
The thing that's amazing about this company is the largest 3-service utility in the nation. That is a huge deal. And what I have come to appreciate is how complicated that is. That's not an easy thing to do, because we have it's one thing to run the power piece, and that's great. But when you involve gas and water, there are other regulations, there are other things that come into play. And I'm just amazed at how talented a lot of our folks are that can do that so well to meet the needs of our customers. I think that's pretty cool.
One thing about MLGW, as you know by now for certain, is that the head of this company and the company itself is often in the public's crosshairs.
Yes.
And if anything goes wrong, they want you to know about it.
They do.
And quite frankly, in the last several weeks with storms, things have gone wrong.
Yep.
Tell me a bit about what do you think it is. I know you told the city council you think it's the infrastructure.
Well, I think that's certainly the largest piece. Two things I'll tell people. Being around this industry for 35 years, I've seen the fact that weather is going to do what weather's going to do. The best thing you can do with infrastructure is try to harden it enough to where it's resilient. That does not mean, and I've never been in an environment where infrastructure can totally be insulated from the adverse impacts of bad weather. And so what we have to always balance is the need for us to deliver reliable service at a reasonable cost with the need to have infrastructure that can be resilient and reliable. And so that's a balancing equation that takes a lot of effort and a lot of focus, and that's what we're trying to do now.
It's almost becoming, and I hate to put it this way to you, but it's true, it's almost becoming a joke, people saying in Memphis, when it rains, you're going to lose power. What do you think about that?
Well, I would say that as a general rule, everywhere I've worked, when we have bad weather, we've always had been outages. Outages come, especially when you have lightning storms, high winds. I don't know of a system in the country that can withstand that without having some outages. What we're trying to focus on is minimizing the duration of those outages so that our customers aren't adversely impacted for as long. And so again, it doesn't surprise me that when we have bad weather, we will have outages. That's really kind of part and parcel to any utility that serves customers, particularly for electricity.
Well, what are you doing about that? Are you doing anything specifically to try to avoid these outages, or do you figure like they're just going to come with
No,
it?
well, yeah, one of the things that, as you may be aware, at the beginning of this month, we had the 2% rate increase that went into effect. Part of that, of course, we asked for a bit more than that, but what we're trying to do with the 2% that we received is we're looking at doing what we can with some of our substations to try to improve that infrastructure. We really didn't get enough to do everything that we had planned to do. So one of the things that I've asked our teams to begin to look at, given the constraints that we have on revenue as of today, it's a big ship to turn. It takes a while to upgrade infrastructure. You can't just overnight, create hardened infrastructure. But I want us to begin to look more at things like what's called self-healing networks, automation, where we can keep the duration of the outages to a minimum. That's going to take probably additional investment. That's not on our plate right now, but that is something that I'm asking us to look at, and making sure that we are thinking ahead, thinking about the future, making sure that our customer experience is what it should be. I ask our customers to understand that in an environment like Memphis, storms that come up suddenly, very, very difficult to prepare for storms that just come up suddenly, that have high winds, lightning, like what we experienced on Sunday evening. That storm basically came out of nowhere and just popped up. The great news about that, though, is that we have a lot of hardworking folks who really got about 80% of those customers back on relatively quickly by early morning on Monday. We had about 80% of those customers back. The challenge is that when you have outages that maybe affect the transformer or affect a fuse or affect one or two customer locations, it's a lot more difficult to get those back on quickly because they're so scattered. And so we're trying to address all of that as we move forward.
How are you going to do that? You're going to need more money?
Well, we don't know yet. No decision has been made exactly as to what's going to happen. I am asking that we take a hard look, not just at what we requested last year, but let's take a hard look at what we need to increase the resilience and reliability of our system. I'm actually coming in with an open mind, and the more I look at what the way our system is configured, the more I get with our folks in operations to determine what their recommendations are. It's going to probably come down to the fact that we're going to have to make some changes. What the magnitude is, what those changes will look like, we still don't know. We've still got a few weeks to figure that out.
You're looking at extensive changes then, probably.
Well, in some areas probably, but again, taking into account the increase that we've just received, we're going to factor that in and make sure that those improvements are going to, again, we're just receiving that revenue, so those improvements, there'll be a while before we see the impact of those. But we want to make sure that we get the most out of what we've already received, and before we actually think about and look at the magnitude of anything else we might ask for. But I do want folks to understand that, and I've said this before, it is difficult, and we're sensitive to customers having to pay more for their services. And now we are very sensitive. That's why we have so many programs to help our customers extend payments and arrangements. We do that every day, all day. Great folks doing that. On the other hand, it's inconvenient and challenging when customers have to deal with repetitive outages. So what we are trying to do is make sure that as we think about the needs of our customers on both sides, financial as well as reliability wise, that we're balancing that appropriately so that our customers get the value that they deserve.
Yeah. You know, again, Memphis Light Gas and Water is the strangest utility I've ever seen as far as the relationship in the community. Your workers out there on the lines, I've seen people applaud them. They like what they do out there, and they do. They work hard and fast. They do. Yeah. People's opinions about the programs to pay for people who can't afford might be some of the best I've ever seen anywhere. Yeah. But when it comes to how do you think the companies run, that's when they start to hear the criticisms. And I wonder, and when you hear about the infrastructure and the oldest, the age of the equipment, are you surprised by the age of equipment? I know you knew you were coming in here with a company that had infrastructure problems. Were you surprised?
Well, I don't know that I was surprised. Infrastructure, we always try to make sure we get the most out of our infrastructure. So it doesn't necessarily surprise me that some of our infrastructure is the age that it is. I think what we have to have is a robust program, make sure we have a robust program that takes a look at that infrastructure. I mentioned this a while ago. You can maintain something so long,
that's right,
and after you've maintained something for so long, you run out of opportunity to get the best out of it. So what we're trying to recognize is there's some infrastructure that'll last you for decades and will run just fine for decades. But when you get into an environment like we have, where we've got some equipment that's 50, 60 years old or more, that's when you have to be realistic and understand that those things don't need to just be maintained. Those things need to be replaced, some of that. So that's what we're trying to figure out, and we're trying to figure out a systematic approach so that we do that in a way where there's the most opportunity for that equipment to be replaced and make the best impact. So we're working on all of that.
It's legendary sometimes, some of the stories about how some of the outages in this community have been caused by squirrels or wildlife getting into the struts, into the substations.
Mm-hmm.
Unusual? Is that an unusual thing?
No, it's not unusual. In fact, just about every utility I've worked in, there have been animal challenges associated with infrastructure. I'll put it that way. So, it's difficult to prevent animals from doing what they do, and I know sometimes it's hard for people to understand how can a squirrel do this or do that, take out the whole system. It happens, but we do our best to prevent that, to help keep that from happening. But sometimes you just can't. This is an area that has a lot of trees, beautiful trees actually, by the way, and trees attract animals. And so that's going to be an ongoing challenge for us.
Are you doing any more upgrading, getting a little more into cutting down branches over the wires? Or what's the program?
Well, we do tree trimming. We call it vegetation management. We are trying to make sure that we do that in a way that meets with the aesthetic appeal and desires of the community, but also helps us from an operations standpoint. So when you get certain wind gusts, if we can keep the trimming where it needs to be, it will, there won't be as much of an impact. But when you get 50, 60 mile an hour winds, it doesn't matter how much you trim the trees, you're going to probably have some issues.
When that whole tree goes down, there's nothing you can do there, right? Exactly. Yeah. But so are you becoming more aggressive in that? Because the company's been somewhat aggressive, but over the years you'll see some years they're doing it, some years they're not doing it.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can say more or less aggressive. I just know we have a vegetation management program that we're pursuing. We continue to pursue. It's hard to keep up with a lot of times. Again, there are a lot of trees. There's a cost issue associated with tree trimming as well. We're trying to manage that because that factors into bottom line. But there's a lot of competing challenges that we have to deal with as we run the business.
We're only into the middle of July.
Yep.
There'll be more storms.
Yep.
There's going to be more outages.
More than likely.
Yeah. How do you keep that has the public lost confidence in you guys?
Well, I hope not. I hope the company, the customers understand that we have some hardworking folks who spend their days and nights away from families oftentimes to restore energy to them so that their lives can be productive. And again, we regret the fact that any of that is happening, in fact, the frequency of it and the duration of it. And we're trying to do all we can to minimize that. One of the biggest challenges I will tell people, in addition to trees and all that we talked about with the weather, when you can't plan for the adverse weather, when adverse weather comes up like it did on Sunday, it just pops up, and you can't plan to have resources available for that, it's very, very difficult to respond very timely. We do the best we can with the resources we have. So we're working on trying to make sure that we have a more rapid response. But it's difficult when the storms are unknown. So we're doing our best to try to alleviate that pain.
Many utility companies, I'm wrapping it up here. In many utility companies, the president of the company, the man who runs the company, is kind of unknown. We don't see him much. We don't have this much. You are right out there. You and every other president of Memphis Light, Gas, and Water has always been right out there. You have to be in many ways.
Sure.
Because it's, like you say, it's the community's company.
Absolutely.
Are you ready to take it? Because it's you've taken some hits already.
Sure. And now, not that I've been in the public utility environment like MLGW, but over 35 years I've had to deal with a lot of public exposure, storms, testifying before commissions. I've had to do some things that where I've been in the public eye, and I enjoy bringing value to customers. And I think that while these challenges are big, I enjoy tackling those challenges. And with the team that we have here, I'm confident that we're going to be able to mitigate the impacts of the storms as well as the impact of these outages to our customers. And so we're working to do that every day.
You think if I went across the street talking to ratepayers, they'd feel the same way?
Our customers, I hope, would understand that we do everything we can to ensure that their quality of life is exceptional based on the value that we provide. And I hope that they appreciate that. I know that there's frustrations, and we are sensitive to that. And we do every day. We got great folks working with our customers on the phones, in person, every day to try to help them with regards to their energy bills and with regards to their service. And so I hope our customers would understand that we have no incentive not to do our best to bring them service. That's why we're here. And so you'll be hearing this a lot in the future, but we want our customers to know serving you is what we do. That's what we're about, and we're about bringing them service. So we're going to try to get better every day. That's the challenge I've put forth to our team, to our leadership, and to others, and that's where we're going to be focused.